One of the things that's really important when it comes to growing and scaling a portfolio is having the right mindset around the approach. I can't tell you how many conversations I have with investors who have a small mindset. I don't mean that in the sense of these people don't think big or they can't grow big. What I'm saying is they haven't been exposed to other strategies that can allow them to really scale their portfolio. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the mindset and exposure to help you grow and win. When it comes to real estate investing, most people follow the blueprint that's been laid out by gurus and other successful investors. And it usually starts with investing in single-family rentals, taking the proceeds from that single-family rental, investing in more single-family rentals until you have enough cash flow to cover all of your expenses. And then you're financially independent, right? That is the game plan many people lay out of what it means to be a successful real estate investor. But what if I told you there was a better path? That's right. You don't have to run around chasing tenants, contractors, and others just to be a real estate investor. There are ways you can scale, typically in larger apartment buildings, but there's other strategies as well. And you don't even have to do the work. That's right. You can actually invest passively, meaning someone else is doing the hard work. Someone else is managing the day-to-day. Someone else is making sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the property is making money, and you get to simply collect on the proceeds. Now, if that is a strategy that sounds enticing, listen up. It's called apartment syndication. And through this strategy, you can invest passively where there's an active team. That's right, your general partners. They're going to be the ones going out there, finding the deals, managing the property, making sure it makes money. And then you are simply the limited partner or the passive investor. And all you have to do is invest your money and make a return. Now, certainly there's way more to it than just that, but at a high level, that is essentially what you're doing. You're passively investing in these deals in the same way you would invest in a stock. You're investing in these private equity opportunities, and there's a phenomenal opportunity that so many investors miss on simply because they're not exposed to this strategy. Recently, I sat down with another investor, very successful, 10 single-family rentals, growing his portfolio, but is at that breaking point. He's tired of being a landlord. He's tired of chasing tenants for the rent. He's tired of dealing with the handyman services and finding somebody to come repair this. He's tired of all the nickel and diamond that goes with it. It's a long, slow process when you're buying it one house at a time. So as I started to share more about what I'm doing in the larger apartment space and working with other investors, pooling our capital together to buy larger deals, he really started to resonate with that approach. And this is why I think it's so important for people to know what exists out there, the different strategies that everyday people like you and I are employing to buy these larger properties, to invest in real estate without having to be the landlord themselves. So let's talk about a couple of things that really came out of this conversation. One, I talked about it, but it's exposure. What have you been exposed to? If you only know flipping, if you only know being a landlord, if you only know being a real estate agent or being a wholesaler, then those are the only strategies you're going to understand. And that's going to be what you think being a real estate investor is. And that's going to limit the opportunities that you come across. That's going to limit how much you can scale your business. Think about it like this. Let's say you buy a house and this house rents for $2,000 a month. And your all-in expenses with your mortgage and all your expenses, you're going to be about maybe $1,500, right? So maybe your net cash flowing $500 a month. That's really good, okay? $500 a month, that's a nice investment. Here's the challenge. If you're cash flowing $500 a month and you have a big ticket item that comes up, let's just say you've got a furnace that goes out, or you have some sort of damage in your basement or a roof issue. Let's just say something costs you $5,000. Well, that's 10 months worth of profits gone, just like that. Now, who wants to do an investment property, run around collecting rent, doing all this stuff just for almost an entire year's worth of profits to be wiped out just like that? Not very many people. So that is the challenge with traditional real estate investing. And everyone who teaches you to buy a single family house and rent it out, that's a small mindset because you can only scale so much before something happens and pulls you back. Now, when it comes to the larger properties, Of course, you still have things that happen. You have things that break. You have roofs that need to be replaced. You have all these other issues for sure. Here's the difference though. When you're playing a game at scale, you're anticipating these things to happen every single month. What do I mean? Let's say you have 100 units. At any given moment in time, we anticipate there to be a certain amount of occupancy that we can track. And it's usually going to be in that 92 to 95% range. It could drop, could be 90s, could be high 80s, whatever it is. But at a minimum, you kind of have a threshold of what your occupancy is. If you've got a single family house, it's either 0 or 100, period. There's no in between. It's either 100% occupied or it's completely vacant. You're not at a 75% occupancy. No, it's 0 or 100. Either somebody's there paying rent or they're not. And that kind of fluctuation is really hard for most real estate investors because it's easy to be a landlord. It's amazing when you get a great tenant who's taking care of everything themselves and they're paying rent on time. But the moment that tenant leaves or the minute something breaks, that's when it's hard because it's so inconvenient. And that's the thing that trips up so many people. You get used to things being on autopilot and coasting. And then that time when you get that phone call, it's always at an inopportune time. It's when you're on vacation. It's when you're traveling. It's when you're busy at work and you now have to drop everything that you're doing to now go service this property. And that inconvenience makes it really hard for individual mom and pop real estate investors or independent real estate owners. It makes it really hard. So when you're investing or buying these larger properties, you're running it more professionally. That's right. The scale means professionalism, because if you have 100 units, 200 units, something of that magnitude, you can hire a professional property manager whose job, how they make their living is managing that property. That means when something breaks, it doesn't matter if you're on vacation. They're not calling you. They're calling them. That person's dealing with it. And then you are now managing that individual. And in our model, we're managing that individual. You just get the updates of what's happening at the property. So this is why it's so important. Let me say it a different way. When it comes to scale, think about the revenue numbers. Again, I gave that example earlier. You got a single family house, you're renting it for $2,000 a month. There's $2,000 in revenue coming in every single month. But of that $2,000, you got to pay the mortgage. You got to pay for any repairs or maintenance expenses. You got to pay for maybe some utilities, maybe water, trash, depending on what's included and what's not. You got to put some money aside for capital expenditures, right? At some point, that roof's going to need to be replaced. At some point, you may need to invest in new windows and doors or a new furnace, or to have, snow removal or any of these kind of things, lawn care services. So you have to put some money away, even if they're not expenses you're actually incurring on a monthly basis. You have to anticipate some of that, right? So if after all of that, you've got $500 left, that's what goes into your pocket, right? You could pay a property manager and give them, if you're lucky, 5-6%. In most cases for a house, you're probably talking 10, 12, maybe more, right? So you're giving 10% maybe of the rent to a property manager. So in that case, if you're including those numbers, maybe your profits go down from $500 a month to $300 a month. And for many people, that's a huge slice of the pie, and they're not willing to give up that much of it. So in that world where now you're talking about 40% of the cash flow, 40% of the profits going to the property manager, some people say, no, I'm just going to self-manage for that, right? And that's when it becomes inopportune and really not the best investment because it's not really passive. Yeah, it can be passive for a good chunk of the time, but when it's not passive, it's pretty doggone active, right? So in that case, there's only $2,000 of revenue coming in that you can operate, that you can play around with. When you talk about a larger property, let's say you've got a 100-unit complex that also rents for $2,000 a month, right? 100 units, $2,000 a month. That's $200,000 a month of revenue that you get to play around with, right? You take that $200 a month, you extrapolate that over a year. Well, now you got $2.4 million, right? $2.4 million in gross revenue that you can utilize to pay for all the expenses, to hire professional landscapers, to hire a professional property manager, to hire professional attorneys and CPAs and all these different individuals that you likely need. Whereas when you're running it as a rental, as a little side project, as a little hustle, You don't have enough money to hire these people. You got to do all that work yourself or ask ChatGPT. Like, that's the reality for most people. So if you really want to grow and scale, you have to think differently. The rentals are great. I'm not knocking the rentals. I like rentals, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in that smaller market space right now. But I do want you to think bigger, to understand the value in scale in having these larger apartments. And then for most people, they say, hey, John, that sounds great. Yeah, who wouldn't want to have a $2.4 million business that they can operate and hire professional people to run the day-to-day tasks of it? The challenge for most people is, yeah, I don't have the money to buy that. And this is where, again, thinking creatively comes in mind. So once you can think big and you can think scale, now you got to think creative. It's not so much about you having the money to buy this property that generates $2.4 million in gross revenue. It's understanding, how can you invest in a property like this? Who can you partner with that can pull together a deal like this? And this is why it's so important to network and build that community. And for most investors, they don't get that exposure because they're not actively talking to the right people. I want you to ask yourself this: who's in your circle? Particularly when it comes to your investments and your financial landscape. Who do you seek advice from? What are you listening to? What content are you consuming? Who do you get your education and guidance from? And I want you to think about those individuals. I want you to think about their lifestyle. I want you to think about their experiences. Have they done the things that they're talking to you about? Have they invested in the kind of assets that they're telling you to invest in? Understand who you're connecting to, because this opens up so many possibilities. And a lot of times we're taking advice from people who are very well educated, very savvy, understand the technical aspects of what they're saying, but maybe they're not walking that walk. Or they're just scared for you. They see investments as risky and they don't want you to lose your money. They don't want you to make a mistake. And let me be crystal clear. All investments come with some level of risk. Every investment, I don't care if it's a bond, like mutual funds, all of them, they have some level of risk. So you have to inherently understand everything has levels of risk. So with that noted, what is your risk tolerance? How do you mitigate those risks? How do you reduce the potential of losing money and increase the likelihood of you turning a profit? This is where the intelligent investor is connected with the right individuals. And it's why it's so important to surround yourself with individuals who are playing the game the way you want to play it, being a part of certain communities, masterminds, having coaches, mentors, attending different events. This is why it's so important. And even watching videos like this, you can have your YouTube University coaches and professors. Learn from us, learn from others as well. But join those groups so you can get surrounded with the information and the people who have the intellectual capacity to do what they're saying, but also have the experience and can guide you along the way. Because the more and more you surround yourself with people playing that game, the easier it's going to be for you to play it as well. Let me give you a quick story. When I was starting out and scaling my portfolio, actually, before I had anything, before I had a single investment, I was attending these RIA events because I knew I wanted to invest in real estate, but none of my friends, none of my family members had invested in real estate. So I didn't really have that person to go talk to. And anytime I brought up real estate investing with friends or colleagues, all I heard was the negative, the things that could happen, the stories, the nightmares, right? Oh, my aunt had a rental property, man, and her tenants tore the property up and never paid rent, and she had to evict them. And that's certainly part of it. That's part of the game. That's part of the business for sure. I'm not invalidating those stories, but they often don't share the positives. People don't talk about how those investments built a nest egg, or how these maybe even boring investments allowed them to add a couple $100s of passive income to their pockets every single month, or how it added $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 to their net worth. People don't tend to share those stories as much, right? And that's the reality for so many of us. If you're not surrounded by the right individuals, maybe you don't get that narrative and you don't learn. Take that same example. My aunt had a rental, had some bad tenants who tore up the property and she had to evict him. Okay, that doesn't mean real estate doesn't work. It certainly doesn't mean rentals don't work. So there's a lesson in there. Lean into that. I wonder what happened. Maybe she did a poor job screening. And maybe, those tenants weren't the right ones for that particular property. Maybe she didn't have a security deposit. There are a lot of lessons in that scenario that we miss because we just hear the fear mongering. Oh man, rental's bad. Investment's bad. Real estate investors bad. Landlords, oh, you the devil. That's not the case, right? Now, you can carry yourself however you want. I believe in creating quality housing for those who are looking for it. I want to match up what we have to offer: beautiful homes, beautiful kitchens, dining rooms, bathrooms, nicely renovated environments, to the people who want to live in these environments. And for us, if you can create that, now there's a nice value exchange. And if you do that, you don't have to feel like a slumlord or a dirty investor, any of those kind of things. So for me, you can be the kind of investor who adds value, who invests in communities, who makes a difference in people's lives. Or you could be somebody who cuts corners and, tries to save every nickel to turn a profit and ultimately ends up pissing off his fan base or his customer base. And that's not really the way I like to do business. So for me, it really comes down to you, how you operate, who you are at your core, and how you want to do business. But you can create value for those folks who are looking for it if you have the right mindset. And most investors, most seasoned investors, will tell you that investing in your properties, investing in your people is always a great thing. It's an investment that will pay off because you're going to attract a higher quality tenant. They're going to stay longer. They're going to, leave the property in better condition, treat the property better. And ultimately, they may end up giving you referrals or helping you out in various situations. So this is the way you want to run business. I don't know why some people think of real estate investing or owning rental properties is not the same as other businesses. Certainly, there's a lot of big differences, but just like any other business where you have customers or clients, you've got to cater your business to that clientele. And if you decide you want a crappy product or a crappy service that you're going to provide, then yeah, you're probably going to get crappy customers on the other side of that, because who wants to deal with that? So if you offer quality, you screen for those individuals, I think you could create a lot of value. But the key in all of that is you got to surround yourself with people who are playing that game. So going back to it, I was going to these meetups. I was connecting with people who were playing the game because I didn't have those folks in my network. And in doing that, I started talking to people who owned 100 plus unit portfolios. And that was just insane to me because, again, I just thought success was maybe you get a couple rentals and you're golden, right? You get a couple $100 here and there, offset whatever you're making in your W-2 job. And that's the way you slowly build wealth over time. But when I started meeting people who didn't have day jobs and all they did was have a portfolio of properties, the light bulb started to go off like, wait a minute, how do you make that happen? How do you do that? Well, how'd you gain these properties? How much money did you need, right? I mean, that's the question we always want to ask, but nobody wants to seem greedy or ignorant and coming out and saying it, right? And there's a way to get those answers without being rude. But at the end of the day, we all want to know, how did you get the money necessary to build this kind of portfolio? And the truth of the matter is you can do it a couple ways. You can grind it out slowly, property after property, refinancing after you do it, taking out that equity, buying the next one. And that's certainly a tried and true way of growing your portfolio. And there's a lot of value and a lot of knowledge that comes from taking that approach. But there's also a way where you can learn on some of your early investments, but then start to partner with others. And the reason that's so important is the biggest limiter that everyone faces is a lack of cash. Even if you've got millions and millions and millions of dollars in your portfolio now, at some point, especially if you're doing big deals, you're going to run out of money, or you're not going to want to put all your money into a deal, or you need to have a certain amount of liquidity. And when that happens, the access to capital becomes a challenge. So if you can get comfortable with the idea of partnering with others, leveraging other people's capital, working as a group and not as an individual to build your own portfolio, but helping others in that process, now the opportunities become abundant because you're not looking at how much a property is selling for as the deciding factor of whether or not you're going to analyze that deal or put in an offer on that deal. You're going to see if you like the property. Hey, do I like this property? Do the numbers make sense? Now, how much money do we need to buy it? How much do I have? How much do I need to go out there and get? And admittedly, it takes time to retrain your brain to understand how to approach deals like that, but it's possible. And it's a lot easier when you surround yourself with people who already think like that and can help you do those kind of deals and learn how to think like that more frequently. It's just like someone working out. If you want to get in great shape, but all your life you grew up eating junk food and fast food, and now you find yourself needing to get in shape or wanting to get in shape, you may decide, hey, I got to make more changes than just, my diet on paper, because it may not be that you don't know what to do. It may be you're not in the environment that is curated to guide you down the path to get the solutions and the results you're looking for. So how do you change that? Well, you may join a gym. You may join, hire a coach or join a program where you're around other folks. Even in the gym, you may take workout classes. You may get a workout buddy. You may, set goals and write these things down. But there's an environment and triggers that you have to do. On the flip side of that, you may need to get rid of the bad stuff. You may need to throw out the chips. You may need to, cut up your fast food cards and delete those apps on your phone, right? You may need to do certain things to create that environment to remind yourself of your goals. You may need to step on a scale, every single day and write down your weight. But there's steps you've got to take to create the change that you want to see. It's the same thing when it comes to real estate, the same thing when it comes to investing. Are you in the right clubs? Are you in the right circles? Do you have those systems set up? Do you have somebody you can talk to? Are you involved in analyzing deals on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, or whatever that cadence is for you? Are you having the appropriate conversations? Are you meeting with brokers? If you're not doing the things and you're not in an environment where those things are reinforced, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to break that habit and create this new version of yourself that you're looking to create. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with the right people. Yes, you can lose weight by yourself. You don't need to be a member of a gym. But if you have a gym membership and you're around other people who are making healthy choices and working out on a daily basis, it's a little bit easier to stay on track, to stay on task, versus if you're trying to do it by yourself and no one else around you is on that same path. Investing is very similar. Find that group, find that audience, find that community that is also committed to growing and scaling, analyzing deals, raising capital, investing in multifamily. That's going to make it easier. If you are interested in a community, we are relaunching our multifamily mastery, and I'm super excited for this revamped experience. We're going to create some tools and resources that are going to make it easier for individuals to grow and scale their portfolio. And one of the main things that I'm focused on is making it easier to find success and to get traction earlier in the process. So if this is something that is of interest to you, somewhere around me here, probably in the show notes or in the description, we're going to put some information on how to find out more about that program. But super excited about bringing this to life and relaunching this thing to help other folks who are looking to surround themselves with people playing the game at a high level. You have to open up your mindset if you want to grow and scale. For me, I can think through a few different folks that I've met over the years who helped me early on. But even now, I've transitioned. I'm a business owner in addition to running multifamily. And in that business, I'm surrounding myself with other folks, other operators who are in the space who are running into the same challenges. Where are you getting, equipment from, or staffing issues or billing issues or AR? It's everything else. There's always something that can trip you up or hold you down. And if you can create the environment where you know where to get the answers, as opposed to you having to already know the answers, it makes it so much easier for you to succeed. If you want to learn more, check out our Multifamily Mastery program. We're going to be launching here very, very soon. And also, if you want to scale as a multifamily investor, we got a couple of videos that can help you out. Check out these videos floating around here, and I'll check you out next week.